Hi, I'm Bill Newcott, film critic for the Saturday Evening Post, and I'm here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Now, ordinarily, you wouldn't expect to come to Amish country to discover the future of the movies. But that's exactly what we did, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But first I'm going to show you a very scary 60-foot-tall Oprah Winfrey in A Wrinkle in Time, and two very different love stories in theaters this week. One wonderfully quirky and the other perfectly poignant. Here's our podcast, Movies for the Rest of Us. I've got one thing to say about Oprah Winfrey and the new screen adaptation of A Wrinkle in Time.
It's just plain big. It's just plain big.
It's funny that the trailers for the film scrupulously avoid showing us the scenes where Oprah's character is 60 feet tall, and that's understandable. In a movie stuffed with ill-conceived attempts at fanciful whimsy, the sight of Oprah towering like a Gulliver and Lilliput, well, it's inescapably ridiculous. Young Storm Reid is quite good as a young girl in search of her missing dad, but director Ava DuVernay's outlandish vision and scattershot plotting keeps getting in the way. The worst thing about A Wrinkle in Time?
We are in search of warriors.
Warriors who serve the good and the light in the universe.
You'll never get that time back.
Lower your chin. A little to the right. Not so far. Stay there.
Stanley Tucci wrote and directs Final Portrait, starring Geoffrey Rush as the painter Alberto Giacometti and Armie Hammer as the art critic James Lord. Giacometti convinces Lord to sit for a portrait in his Paris studio, but an afternoon posing stretches into weeks, and it seems the artist will never finish the work. Final Portrait is at times an intriguing glimpse into the mind of a genius, and Tucci's cast is perfect. But the story rambles and no one seems to learn anything. At the end, we're left with a movie much like one of Giacometti's portraits, the semblance of life surrounded by hollow darkness.
We can't stop.
You don't want to be like that. You want to be normal like me. What's your problem anyway? I don't know what's wrong with you.
Well, I have autism.
Is that it?
No, I also have an LD.
What is that, like a venereal thing?
No, it's a learning disability.
Oh.
The extraordinary romantic comedy Keep the Change follows two autistic grown-ups as they fumble through their relationships and their own individual ways of dealing with their condition. Director Rachel Israel has cast actors with autism throughout, including her two lead characters, endearingly played by Brandon Polanski and Samantha Alessifon.
I find you really smoking hot and so sexy.
Most of what I knew of autism was from film portrayals of it, and I just had never seen someone who was, so headstrong in pursuing social connection and pursuing love. I hadn't seen that as on screen. And then the more I got to know these other characters in the world, similarly wanted to just kind of show this diversity and the humanity of these characters.
Funny, poignant, and life-affirming, Keep the Change is one of this year's most happy surprises.
Don't you want to have all the things that normal people have?
Absolutely not.
Mom, you knew I was coming to get you. Why are you not here?
We're just taking a little trip, Jane. Your father's perfectly capable of driving. He's doing very well.
Oh, John!
Helen Mirren and Donald Sutherland are two of the screen's most resourceful actors, and they make the most of The Leisure Seeker, the story of a long-married couple taking one last road trip from New England to Key West, Florida.
Oh, look, John.
Is this heaven?
Maybe.
Do you think a guy can get a burger up here?
He's slipping into dementia, and she's got her own health problems. But the pair's fierce devotion to each other is what propels this most unusual love story from beginning to end.
Promise me something. Don't leave me again.
Oh, I promise.
So, why am I here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania? Well, although this part of the country is legendary for its simple Amish lifestyle, it's also home to one of America's most technically advanced showplaces, the Sight and Sound Theater. For 20 years, this building has presented spectacular productions based on Bible stories, and for its latest show, Jesus, the theater has installed what may well be the future of the movies, an enormous high-definition LED screen. You see, for more than 100 years, theatrical films have relied on a technology that a caveman would recognize, simply throwing images on walls with the audience watching reflected light. But as film becomes more spectacular and 3D films demand a brighter image to penetrate those special glasses, reflected light doesn't always cut it. So in the next decade or so, LED screens like this one will almost certainly become the norm at theaters nationwide. So Glenn, I was just downstairs, I saw this enormous screen, the biggest thing I've ever seen in one room. How big is that? Right?
Yeah, it's about the width of a 737. So
that's a big movie screen.
It's a very big.
It's a big movie screen.
There's over 1,200 individual blocks.
Wow! And not far away, it's a seamless image.
Correct.
I mean,
it's designed to be.
You're 20 feet away from that thing. You don't see the.
Absolutely. You have to deal with a different level of color saturation, the amount of brightness. We're only using about 7% brightness on this entire screen. Yeah. And then your blacks are true black as well, which you don't get with projections.
There's no denying the effect of a high-def image this big. Just imagine how a Marvel action flick might look on it. Or a 60-foot-high Oprah. Well, maybe not. Oscars are over, so some of the big award winners are finally coming to the home screen. Here are this week's home video quick hits.
Doing me a big favor, just being nicer.
You want to be my friend?
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm gonna have to think about that.
The 4 stars of Same Kind of Different as Me have 10 Oscar nominations among them, and they breathe life into the true story of a Dallas art dealer who befriends a homeless man, and how they changed each other's lives. When it first came out, there was carping that the film oversimplifies the nature of race relations, but I spoke with Ron Hall, the guy played by Greg Kinnear in the film, and he says people just underestimate the power of the virtue of kindness.
You know, the story was so impactful to me. It was a life-changing story, obviously. I just never realized that what the love can do, to someone. But my friend Denver, he taught me, he said, a lot of people got a lot of hell in them, and sometimes you just got to bless the hell out of them. So just with an act of kindness, you can do that. If you just continue to be kind to people, you will soon win them over.
If I told you about her, the princess without voice, what would I say?
This year's top Oscar winner is arriving in homes, and I say The Shape of Water, Guillermo del Toro's fable about a mute woman who falls in love with a black lagoon-like creature, is more than the year's best film. I say it's one of the greatest films ever.
If I told you about her, what would I say? I wonder.
The haters always say, Tanya, tell the truth. Everyone has their own truth.
There are lots of reasons to see I, Tonya, the story of ice skater Tanya Harding's rise and hard fall, but you've absolutely got to see Allison Janney as Tanya's mother from hell. That parrot on her shoulder makes her seem positively pirate-like.
Stop that.
So what do you do around here?
Read books, transcribe music, swim at the river, go out at night.
Sounds fun. All right, later.
Screenwriter James Ivory became the oldest Oscar winner ever for Call Me By Your Name, about a teenager finding first love in 1980s Italy. The actors are beautiful to look at, but the real star here is Lombardy, Italy, lushly photographed by the Thai cameraman Sayambo McDeeprom.
What things that matter?
White noise.
Well, that's our podcast. For more in the movies, go to SaturdayEveningPost.com/movies. And for all my reviews, interviews, and videos, come to my website, moviesfortherestofus.com. For the Saturday Evening Post, I'm Bill Newcott.